Greetings from West Texas. My name is Joshua Dickinson, and I am from Lubbock, Texas. And a few days ago, a New York Times journalist wrote an ingenious little article made to look like people in West Texas were idiots, and we're not taking any precautions about the so-called pandemic we are under right now. To be clear, COVID-19 has not turned out to be the great danger that everyone fears, yet you wouldn't know that from the news reports. They're rather ingeniously written. But this journalist, and I use the term loosely, has succeeded in pissing me off. Now, I'm not one to go after somebody in anger. So I sat on it a few days and thought about it, and thought about what I should be talking about. So, in that article, this New York Times author points out the fact that we're not wearing masks. Now, I was at that gathering, and we were not in any way squeezed around tables. There was one large family that was around one table, and we had 3 other tables that we were sitting at with enough space between each group of families, to not really pose a hazard. We did our usual pleasantries, which is kind of typical for human beings unless they're filled with fear and not paying attention to the fact that they need some helpful germs. Anyways, I won't go off on that right now. I'll talk about that later. We were separated within the families at different tables, and the photo they used was made with a telephoto lens, and it makes it look like you're very close together, but the people were quite a ways apart. The woman in the forefront was actually about 8 feet from my wife, who is in the background, but it makes it look like she's much closer than that. And that woman was about 6 feet from me, and she was also still about 6 feet from the other family at the long table that we had there. So the kids were doing some things together, but there is evidence that COVID-19 does not affect kids in the same way that it does adults. So we have not had any problems afterwards. Nobody's gotten sick or anything. And we've done just fine. A lot of people responded to the article with all these derogatory comments towards Texas and how they hoped we wouldn't go to the hospital and all this other stuff. Well, when a person goes to the hospital, they do so on their own pocket. They have to pay the hospital for what they have taken, for any things they have taken. In other words, they're paying for treatment, they are paying for all of the medicines, all of that stuff. It does not come free to the patient. They also do not take a lot of patients in and then not make sure they're healthy. So hospital bills can come out to be quite expensive. If somebody is just goofing off and they get sick, they are going to pay for it. Now, a lot of these people claimed that we were being unscientific and all this other crap. But if you look at science and critical thinking, you would realize that the purpose of the masks is actually to reduce the amount of exposure to a disease or whatnot that a person gets. And in fact, most masks do not stop any aerosols and all that from getting through them. You will get water droplets through them quite easily. So they serve no real purpose other than to make people who are afraid feel better about themselves instead of being able to actually stop anything. In fact, most masks actually don't do jack to a cough. They've shown this in several videos. They took a deodorant spray and sprayed it through masks, and only the N95s stopped anything. So people that are saying that you have to wear a mask outside, there is that problem. The second problem with wearing a mask outside is, well, actually with wearing a mask anywhere, is the fact that CO2 builds up in your system because you are rebreathing your air and therefore increasing the CO2 in your system. Now, your system works like a car motor. And if you recycle CO2, what happens in a car that is stuck inside a building where it is recycling the air that was in it? Carbon monoxide starts to build up. So if you are too long with a mask on, CO2 will start to turn to carbon monoxide. It is a slow process in a human being, and with a mask it's not efficient at building up, but it will start to build up. The second thing masks do in regards to noble gases and other kinds of gases that you breathe. Excuse me, I have a dry throat because I'm out here talking in this hot weather. The second thing you do is you reduce your oxygen intake because you're rebreathing the CO2 that you are breathing out. And the mask will slow down the speed at which you breathe in oxygen. Just a second. Now, this causes a severe problem for some people. For others, it's not so bad. In my case, after about 5 to 15 minutes, I get a severe migraine. My wife has asthma, and, well, actually she doesn't have asthma. She has less lung function than a normal person because she was preborn, and at the time they did not have the medicines that help to develop your lungs quickly so that you will be in a better condition. They don't have near that amount of problem with kids these days because of the medicines that they've developed to help to increase the speed at which your lungs are fixed, are put together, however you want to explain it. I can't think of the correct word because sometimes I get that problem. Anyways, the other problem with masks is the heat buildup. Your lungs are a massive heat pump. They release a lot of heat from your body out into the outside air. They also bring cool air or cooler air into your body from the outside air. Now, this doesn't always help you, especially on a very, very hot day, but that is what your body does with it. if you have a mask on and you are expelling that heat directly into the mask and then rebreathing the air back in, you are increasing the heat in your body and not expelling it. This causes some severe problems with your body because you will get heat stroke if you have enough of that built up. So masks are a problem there as well. The next problem is, for those who are worried about critical thinking and science, is the fact that air in the outdoors will be affected by winds and breezes. Now, today it's rather calm, but we had the outdoor fans on out at the Brahms. We had asked them to turn them on, and there was actually a fairly good breeze going on that day. This means that the germ particles and other things in your breathing will spread out more quickly. And this produces the result that is expected with masks of reducing exposure to the germs that are present in the other person's system. Now, this is not necessarily a good thing because you need contact with various germs in order to keep a healthy immune system. Another scientific fact that a lot of these people who are harping about masks are not thinking of. And they go on about science, but they're not using science. They're not using critical thinking. The other thing that happens is that when you are wearing a mask, you're always touching that mask. There are very few people who do not touch their mask while they're wearing it and adjust it to try and make it more comfortable, because masks are very uncomfortable things. They're not made to be on your face. Well, they're made to go over your face. But your face is not made for them to be on it. Your face was designed to have air touching it, or water, or but it was not designed to have a mask on it for an extended period of time, to have anything on a specific part for an extended period of time, without some kind of reaction happening in your body, and your automatic reflexes kicking in to adjust whatever it is. So, because of this uncomfortable feeling, you're touching your mask all the time. Now, what does that do? That puts germs directly on your mask that you have been touching other surfaces. So when that happens, your mask is actually becoming a transmitter of disease. The masks also tend to get wet or moist very quickly, and then they will also breed disease. So what is happening with these masks is, unless you are washing them regularly and very carefully, you are spreading the disease quite quickly. However, you are still getting exposure because you are touching the mask. Now, this is not something that the news organizations will state. They have continually harped on the masks after all. So, everybody's also stuck on these masks, and they all remark on the whole fact that the experts, the so-called experts of the CDC, have suggested them and all that. Well, that is actually a recent development, and the CDC reacted to public opinion and put that in place. That is not a scientific thing. It is a matter of public opinion swaying the CDC. This is not a good thing. An organization that is supposed to be for public safety should not be swayed by the public to do what is not safe, or to change their statements about what is safe to something that is not safe because the public demands it. Yet this is exactly what the CDC has done. Now, in regards to masks, they do have some function and they are useful to some small degree. However, they are not the be-all, end-all that everybody seems to think, and they are not as safe as everybody seems to think either. There are people like me who have a serious problem when they wear masks. I would seem entirely normal and healthy, except for the fact that when I wear these masks, I get a severe migraine. So, you can see the problem with the masks. If you actually look up this information, you'll find that I'm fairly correct. Now, there are a number of memes that have been put out there where people show they've got a little meter in their hands, and or a number that's being shown that is the number for how much oxygen is there. Now, I've looked at these memes, and if you look at them carefully, you'll see that the memes, they either show it at the same level, or where they really go wrong, and where it becomes quite obvious that they are lying, is they show that the oxygen level actually increased with that mask, which is an improbability. It is highly unlikely to ever happen because of the functions of the mask. If you are listening to these kinds of propaganda, you are not getting the truth. If you are listening to the news and not forming a opinion based on scientific reasoning or even common sense reasoning, you're not getting the truth. You may spout science, but what you're looking at is pseudoscience. Pseudoscience is a thing that shows itself as science, but in actuality it ignores every scientific principle, including the scientific method. Now, the scientific method would include taking an experiment, doing it, and you have a second thing that is a control. Nothing is done to that, or a specific reaction is done to it that is only done that way. There's no extra additional stuff done. Now, this varies from person to person because of the way the controls work. You can have multiple ways to do a control. However, you need a control and you need test or the science experiment did to produce the same results. If you cannot reproduce the results very quickly and very easily without manipulating anything, then it is not something that cannot be repudiated. Our country has basically gone nuts over COVID. I mean nuts as in crazy, bonkers, stupid, idiotic things. And it's all driven by the fear that the news agencies have brought about. Now, in Texas, we've been wearing the masks and such, but when we're outdoors, we don't wear them because it's dangerous. If we're indoors, we've been wearing them. In my case, I have a very hard time wearing them. You know, a lot of the times I'll have to play with it anyways. The other day I got fed up and took it off because I'm already exposing myself to the germs anyways by touching things. It's no use to do that. No use to wear the mask if I'm having that many problems and already touching things. You also, with this whole situation, we're throwing away hundreds of years of immunology. Hundreds of years of information and experiments and tests that have been done. And we're letting people play hanky-panky with science. When science is used as a means to corral and control people, it is no longer science. It is being used as a propaganda tool, and it is no longer trustworthy. With coronavirus, or novel coronavirus, COVID-19, as they are calling it, which is actually CoV SARS-2 coronavirus. We have thrown away the scientific method in favor of propaganda. And it's a really sad day to see this happen in America. You throw away your freedoms and your liberties for the sake of a little temporary safety, and you throw out the freedoms and happiness of future generations for the sake of your fear. It is not a good thing to do. When are you going to get tired of living in fear and just start living? When are you going to stop letting the fear of others control you and start living your life to the fullest? That is my question for everybody out there. Now there's one other thing that I want to point out. The event we had was on July 1st, 2020. The article that was posted on July 4th, 2020, and the way that the journalist worded his article made it seem as if the gathering was done after that Thursday when the governor issued his executive order. That is intentionally misleading, and it is wrong. Thank you for listening. God bless America. Wake up, America.